All right. So welcome everyone on this channel. The name of the channel is Ordinary People Are Doing Extraordinary Things. And I'm Miller Ristich with Miller Coaching, a mindset coach. And the main idea and goal for this channel is to let you know that you're not alone on your journey and you're also extraordinary. So today I have with me my guest, Kelly Lekic. Kelly Lekic is a very special, extraordinary lady, and she owns her own business, Pax Consulting. But what is extraordinary about Kelly is that she had a very, very challenging time, and she had a tumor, brain tumor that is called acromegaly.
Yes, that's very good. Good job.
Yeah. So Kelly overcome that challenge by using her mindset to not really look deep onto the negative side of it, but to go through this challenge on a no painful way, on an easy way, and overcome it on her own way. And this is what we want to share with you here today. I would ask Kelly to introduce herself on her own, and how did that happen that she got diagnosed with this type of a brain tumor, and how that was for her.
Hi, everyone. As Millie said, my name is Kelly Lekic, which she pronounces beautifully because she is from the same region, so she understands. I was probably about 38 years old when I was diagnosed. At the time, I had 3 little girls. The youngest was probably maybe 2.5, 3 years old. And then I had 2 that were a little bit older, 5 and 4. So they were very, very young. And prior to that, I was too busy having children to pay attention to everything. And I had been teaching. And once I had my children, I had stopped working. And I wasn't really feeling well. Pay attention to your body, and you ignore certain things, but I knew something was wrong. I could physically feel it. I could physically see it. I didn't look healthy. I didn't look like myself. I was just in pain all the time, my joints, my body, everything. And I couldn't really pinpoint it. So I started to see, I was going to my doctor regularly. I started going every month. And after about 6 months of going back and forth to her, I went for a visit, for a checkup. And she said, "I know what's wrong with you." And I was like, "Oh my God, like what is it?"
Kelly, sorry for interruption, but how many years you were noticing these changes?
God, it had to be at least 5 years that I noticed it. I noticed it after I started noticing it after I had my first child. So I noticed it like when I was pregnant for her. When I was pregnant at the time, I knew something was wrong, and I had a really difficult pregnancy, and I just wasn't feeling well. And I wound up having preeclampsia with her, toxemia. She was born premature. So, and then I got pregnant again right away after her. So it was about 5 years prior to the surgery that I started to notice. So, but what happened was, and I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who've had children, and, you say things like, "Oh, well, I just had a baby. I feel this way because I just had a baby. And my body's not the same anymore." And then
you're ignoring the signs of your body.
The signs, even though in your mind, and I would see other women, and I'm like, I just look different. Feel different. There's something's not right. And your family, they see you every day. So they're like, "There's nothing wrong with you. You're fine. There's nothing wrong with you." And I could feel it. I could sense it. So this doctor that I went to, who's a wellness doctor is what she is actually, she was making me come in and just doing these checkups every month. And as I was coming in, and like I said, 6 months into these checkups, she said, I know what's wrong with you. And she's like, I'm not going to tell you, I want to do some special blood work first. So she took a bunch of blood and she sent it out. And I went back a week later and she said, you have a brain tumor. She said, you have a disease called acromegaly, and it's caused by a tumor on your pituitary. And it produces an enormous amount of growth hormone. So say like your growth hormone, a normal person is like 55. Mine was 1400. Wow, so I was, so like an enormous amount of growth.
So Kelly, that is a very rare disease, right?
Yes.
It's a very rare type of.
It's not very common, although because it's very difficult to diagnose, they think that there's a lot more people that may have it that just go undiagnosed. And either there's a fatality where they pass, or they just, live with this disease until it gets so bad that they find it. But most people don't really pay attention to their bodies. They really don't notice things that are going on. I just happen to be one of those. And I think it's also from being a woman, when you see your body and everything physically change, you sort of really start to pay attention. So she's like, you need to find a neurosurgeon, right away. You have to speak to someone as soon as possible.
So when she told you that news, how did you feel? You said you were relieved a little bit.
Yes, I have to tell you, I did not cry. I was not upset. I was not even sad. I was actually so happy. I was so glad, because I had been living in pain and I was not, I knew I wasn't myself. So I guess, and it might be just my disposition, my personality. I wasn't like, oh my God, I have a brain tumor, I'm going to die. It was more like, oh my God, I have a brain tumor. We can fix this. This is great. Now I know what's wrong with me.
Kelly,
Go ahead.
Sorry for interruption, but you know that if other people will get this news, and I know there are many of them out there who are getting similar news or
diagnoses,
diagnosis, they would just crash, or they will start crying, or they would write. So your mindset at that time was totally on another level, where you were like thinking, okay, how I can fix this. So you were thinking into solution. You were not thinking to give up.
No, never crossed my mind. Giving up was not an option. I think for a lot of reasons. I think because I had children that I wanted to raise those children.
How old were you then?
At the time, I would say 5, 4, and like maybe older, 7, 6, and then 3, in that range, around the range of that. They were young. They were like in grammar school, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, and then preschool. So they were young, and I kept thinking, I was like, there is no way that I am leaving this earth and I am not raising these girls. And I have 3 daughters. So that was another thing. I'm very much about empowering yourself. And I always said, I want to empower my daughters to be strong women and intelligent women. And the only person who's going to do that the right way is their mother. So it was really important for me to live. And then for myself too, I had too many things I wanted to do and experience, and death was not one of them. So not at that age anyway. So
how did you keep that? How did you keep that bulletproof mindset, going through the therapies and like dealing with all this pain, and even still raising the kids and being a wife? And how did you keep that bulletproof mindset still going?
I don't want to have people think that you don't have days where you're like, oh, I can't do this today. That is 100% normal. There are days when you're going through these things that sometimes you don't want to get out of bed. Sometimes you want to lay in bed and you want to cry. Well, cry. Go ahead. You should let it out. Feel what you need to feel.
Right.
And if that takes a couple days or whatever, but then you have to start and you have to think. And I would read positive books, things about healing yourself, how to be the healthiest you could be. I joined Facebook groups for other people with people who had this disease. And I started,
like supportive
support. Yes, it's a huge thing, is to have support. I joined forums on Facebook, and I joined forums on Instagram, and started to connect with people from all over the world who also had the disease, and things that they did. And it was such a big help, because for one thing, it is a rare disease. So you don't know a lot of people who have it. It's not like you're walking in and where you could say, okay, everyone in this room has this type of cancer. Or I didn't have a lot of people locally that really were dealing with the same thing. So it was really nice to have those outlets, on the internet and things like that, where you could connect with people and have conversations and ask them questions like, is it normal to feel this? Is this supposed to happen? Is that supposed to happen? So dealing with it on your own is never, with anything, is never a good idea. I highly recommend enlisting support, and that, listen, that may not be your husband, that may not be your wife, that may not be your children or your family at all. Sometimes a stranger who you don't have anything in common with is more of a support system, because they don't know you. They're like, listen, hey, too bad, I know this sucks, and this is not really a fun disease for you to have, but this is what you're going to do. You're going to pick yourself up, and you're going to dust yourself off, and you're going to get up tomorrow, and you're going to do what you need to do. And that's one of the things. So a support group is really important. And I think letting go of people who are negative is also important. You have to eliminate the negative. There is no room in your life when you are dealing with adversity for people who are going to bring you down. It does not serve you. And that's very difficult, but those are called boundaries, and you have to set them. It's critically important.
But Kelly, when you're vulnerable like that, how do you set boundaries?
I think it comes a little at a time. I think you start to realize, and you'll see when you're around, like you'll start to sense when you're around, if you're in certain environments, if you're around certain people that you don't feel good with, you have to pay attention to those emotions. And you don't have to say to those people, hey, I don't want to talk to you anymore, but you can limit your contact. You can limit how, it doesn't mean like, you cut off your whole family. Some families are those type of people. They're like, oh, woe is me. Oh my God, and, of course you're not going to cut off your whole family, but you may need to limit how much contact you have or how much you tell them. Sometimes it's not good to overshare with people who don't understand. And that doesn't mean you're keeping things from them. It means you're protecting yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a boundary. That's actually a boundary, is not giving too much information to people that are not going to be a support system for you. So, and you don't even realize that's a boundary, but it is. And limiting how much you talk to certain people who don't build you up. That's a boundary. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to cut ties with everyone and quit your job and all of that. It can be very subtle to the point where people don't even realize you're doing it. And when they ask a question and say, well, I haven't heard from you. I'm so sorry. I've just been super busy. I'm just really involved with this, and this. And that's it. You just end the conversation, and that's all there is to it. It's not, it doesn't have to be something so drastic. So.
I love your mindset, Kelly, and how you dealt with all of that. Like, you've been definitely unconscious competent, using all this wonderful material about the mindset, and you just implemented in your life that you didn't even know. As lots of people out there, they don't really, they live in that fear, and then living in that outcome that it's not good for them.
Right.
How did you and I were talking prior going live here, but you were mentioning something that was really, especially for us women, it's really very the part of our life, losing our hair. It's, going
Yes,
through these treatments, it's not really easy.
right.
There's the pain, there's not understanding maybe from the family,
Hmm.
from your kids and everyone, and you also wanted to protect them.
Right.
So you were mentioning situation when you lost your hair. How was that for you, and how you were dealing with that, and where was your mindset going on in that moment?
Right. So at the time, my hair wasn't this short. I had very curly hair, and I had this huge mane of hair down my back, and I had tons and tons of hair. And I was going away. My husband, we decided we were going to go on a vacation to Disney with the kids. We wanted to do something.
That was
And
after the
after the
therapy.
first surgery. Yep, I had the first surgery, and it was a very successful surgery, but they could not get all of the tumor.
Mm.
So my hormone, my growth hormone, my levels and everything were still not good, and I was still not where I needed to be. So I had to go on this medication, which you would get every month. You go to the hospital and you get these shots, and they're these giant shots. The needles are like the size of a nail. And because the medicine is very thick, it's viscous like a Vaseline. So you have
Mm.
to inject them in the lower back, and I can't give them to myself. So you have to go to the hospital, and they would do it every month. One of the side effects, and it's not a huge percentage, but one of the side effects is that you would lose your hair. So I figured, all right, it's not a huge percentage. We're good. I'm not going to have this problem. So, because I was always thinking this is a non-issue. I'm good. The medicine's going to work. It was painful. The shots were painful, and the medicine had side effects, but I was no problem with it. So we decided to go on this vacation, and I was in the shower washing my hair, and all of a sudden I'm rinsing my hair, and all of my hair starts
Oh.
falling out, like clumps of hair. And here's a funny thing to tell people, just to make it more human. I remember calling my husband in and like showing him, because I was like, oh my God, what's happening? And he just stood there. He didn't, he was complete, like there was nothing.
That's what it was like.
Yeah, like he could not, it was so unfathomable. So I just, finished in the shower, and there was just tons of hair coming out. So I had like patches. So what I did was I came out of the shower, I put stuff in my hair, and I just pulled it up into like a little bun on the top of my head. And I just kept it that way for the remainder of the vacation. And the kids were young. I didn't want them to, really know what was going on. So when we got home, as most of us, we have a hairdresser that we've been going to forever. And I went in and I cut all my hair off. I just cut it all off. And I will tell you, it's and I've heard this from women who have had cancer, and I've talked to a ton of women who have been through, chemo and radiation and lost all their hair. And it's pretty much across the board, women, it's the worst part of the disease, of any disease, is losing it's like a loss of identity. It's a loss of femininity. It's a loss of beauty. It's a loss of, so there's a huge shock to you emotionally.
How did you kept your self-confidence still, in this way, uplifting and even for your kids too?
Yeah.
Like, how did they look at you? Maybe they were scared, asking you, mommy, what is the problem?
Yeah,
like,
they
what's going
were.
on, right?
Yes.
So how did you, how did you keep your mind?
That's a good point. So two things. When I went and cut my hair off, I will tell you, because people need to understand from a growth perspective, which I've learned from you got to tell the whole truth. So I sat in the chair and I cried. I cried the whole time she was cutting all of my hair off. I came home and I cried more because it was super short, like pixie, super tight short. And I felt so, I lost my femininity. So the way that I started to deal with it after I kind of let it all sink in was, because at the time I wasn't really physically like fit, like I wasn't doing anything. I started running. So I woke up like within a week of having all my hair cut off. I was like, I have to do something to improve my mind, to improve my body, to improve how I feel about myself physically. So I started to run, which was basically like 6 blocks initially, and I was dead. I was like, oh my God, it's so hard. People who run, to this day, I envy you and I applaud you because it's the most difficult thing in the world. And I just started running every day, and I was weight training. So I was doing weights and I was running. And it wasn't necessarily to get in shape, but I think subconsciously it was, it was more of a mental thing for me. Like I needed to get into a headspace for at least a portion of the day where I could let my mind do what it needed to do. And I could just veg out and just sort of forget. And I'm sure people know when your house is filled with kids and their friends and husbands and, neighbors and family, it's all the noise, and you need some time to sort of let that go. You've got to block it out. And the only way that I could do it was to leave the house. And the best way to leave the house was to just go run. So I started doing that. And little by little, I just started to get so much into my health and into physical activity and all of that. I started signing up for, marathons, and I did a Tough Mudder, which is like very intense and very like a male dominated sort of event. And it really helped me to sort of keep my mind where it needed to be. I always had a vision. Like when I had the surgery, I had a vision of how I was going to recover. I didn't know I was an unconscious competent until I started talking to you and I started to do your coaching. And I didn't think of that. I think I thought I had no choice, but what I really was, I was an unconscious competent. And now I see that even when I was younger, that my mindset was always that I was an unconscious competent. And I just was always pushing through. So I think one of the things that running helped me with was I would hit walls. And when you run, you hit walls all the time. Like you can't go anymore. You can't run anymore. You're going to throw up if you run anymore, and you push through. So I learned that, growth and becoming a better person is painful. It's psychologically painful, it's physically painful. And you're at that point when you're in pain and you're curled up in a ball because you're so depressed and you don't know what to do because this thing is happening to you. Or, you're physically in pain from doing something. You have 2 choices. You can go backwards and go back and not do anything, or you push through. You push through the barrier and you just keep going. And I think that I never realized that's what it was, that it was, I was pushing through. But now I realize it after, going and to people out there, I didn't do this alone. I went to therapy, I joined groups. You have to sort of be proactive to grow. There are wonderful people out there who are willing to support you. Sometimes, you need an assist and you might need to be on medication or something until you get through something else. And there's no shame in that. I think people need to know that, you need that help.
Yeah, you were also vulnerable.
Very.
Right? You were asking for help too. But what is so magnificent and extraordinary about you and your story, Kelly, is how you kept your mind like a runner, basically, like all the time pushing through, having this bulletproof mindset. You said, yes, we have days, you had days, right, where you wanted like to give up and like, but not like a kind of for a second you were thinking you want to give up, but not that was
not
just
completely.
like for a second, right? Just flew by your mind.
Yeah.
But like also what is so interesting that I want to know is that when other people when they didn't have a faith, other people that they were around you, right? They were throwing snowballs and you like, okay, what we're gonna do now? How many more months you have and all that? How did you deal with that? How did you stay strong for yourself? And how did you stay strong for your family and people who were surrounding you? But first
So
for yourself, right?
I think my personality is and has always been, I'm a very tenacious person. So you tell me that I can't, and that
You
is
do
like the
it.
word. It's actually very funny because even my husband now, it's a joke. He'll say to people, he's like, don't tell her you can't. If you tell her she can't. And I think that's always been something that was sort of in me. And I have to say, I grew up in a house filled with boys. I had two older brothers, all of my cousins. I had a lot of boy cousins, and the one girl cousin or two girl cousins were really tough because they had brothers and things like that. So my mom always pushed me. They were always like, get up. Yeah, it sucks. Today's a shitty day and you feel crappy, and I get it, but you got to keep going. So, I always had it sort of in my mind that failure was fine, but not trying is not okay. Like, you can fail. It's all right if if you do something and it doesn't turn out the way you want it, but don't not try.
That's right.
So
It's a bigger failure.
it's a bigger failure to not try. I think, we as adults, we kind of lose that a little bit because we view failure as something so severe, and it's so not. Who cares? You fail, at least you can say you did it. When all of those people, I bet you all the people who criticize you never tried. So don't take their opinion. It's so not important at all. The fact that someone pushes through, and if that thing doesn't work, you try something else, or you try a different therapy, or you try a different, a different method of dealing with something. But I think it's always trying. You just have to continuously push and talk to yourself and talk yourself through it all the time.
Kelly, do you think that your mental strength was enough for your family as well? Like, because your energy and your way of thinking into solutions and thinking into results and not really going backwards and like thinking about the debt, God forbid, right? Which most of people are actually doing. They're going into, this rabbit hole, calls like worries, doubt, fear, all that. Do you think that helped you, right? Being like this, like a butterfly every single day. Yeah, I do have this disease, but I will fight it. I'm not gonna give up. Do you think that this also helped to your family to get elevated and really trust you in this process? And trust them?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. I think if I was coming home every day crying because I felt sorry for myself, or I was sad because I thought I was going to be sick forever and I was never going to be able to do things like other people, or, I think the fact that my personality was always, even on bad days, I'll have a couple hours, and I know I may not be the norm, but for the most part, I find myself, I pull myself up. You know what I mean? I might have a cry session with a couple friends or I'll call someone and, Millie, we've been on calls with our group and I cried on the call because I was having such a shitty day. So I'm human. I do that too. I have shitty days and I cry through it. But I think because I was always positive about it and I always carried it, like I know my husband has said to me, I never worried about you because you never seemed like you needed me to worry about you. So I think that was my personality, was that, I never felt like I needed, to make people worry. I wasn't worried, I'd have a day and I would share it with, a close friend or my husband or, somebody that I work with very closely. I would share, what my concerns were. But for the most part, I would, feel sorry for myself for a little bit, sulk a little and then move on. And that's it. And I think that's even now, working with you and being and meeting a lot of new people through my interaction with you, that, it's okay to have a day, but pushing through was always the biggest thing. And I have fears and I've had to work on them. And, I've been afraid just building a business. I've never started a company before, and I had to learn that too. So even post brain tumor, I still keep that mindset. And some days it's hard and you second guess things you do and, you question it, but then, you talk to yourself and you read books and you try to improve your mind and you improve the people you're with and you realize, what, it's going to be fine no matter what. It's okay. It's okay if, something you put out there had a word spelled wrong. The world is not coming to an end because, you spelled the word wrong. It's going to be good. We invent and create in our minds scenarios that probably will never happen. And I think if you can kind of release that and just realize and say, what, this is probably never going to come to fruition. Let me just keep going. You'd be amazed at what you can accomplish and what you can do.
Kelly, what is one lesson, if you were thinking about that in that period, that you learned from that, being in that state, having the disease, but then still keep going? Like, what was the one lesson that when you go back now in your mind, okay, this is what I really learned?
I would say, I think it's sort of like twofold. I think one is it's the people you surround yourself with. I think that's a very big factor. They always, if you want to elevate yourself, surround yourself with people who are elevated. It's very difficult to elevate yourself if you're surrounded by people who are constantly pulling down, or are always down all the time. So I think it's who you surround yourself with is one. And I think it's trusting your gut, trust your instincts, trust your gut. It's never wrong. When I say never, it's never wrong. I think intuition, I know that's another word for it. Intuition is so powerful. It's so powerful. Your mind is so powerful. And I think as a society, as a world, we're starting to tap into that a little bit. People are starting to understand. I think there's a huge enlightenment about how powerful the mind is. And I think people are starting to see it, but I don't think we've even scratched the surface. We haven't even, but your instincts, your intuition, your gut, whatever you want to call it, trust it every time. And that's from a physical perspective. If you feel something, what's the worst that happens if you go and have it checked out? They tell you you're fine. Okay. But you know what? Trust it. Trust if you're not feeling well. Trust if, if you say to yourself, you know what, I don't want to do this job anymore. If you're working somewhere that you want to go in a different direction, trust your gut, trust your instincts about where you want to go. It's hard, and I think it takes practice, but it's so powerful. People, we ask people, but we know what it is. We know what we need. We know what we feel. We know what we need to do. We know what's best for us. Sometimes those decisions are hard because I think it, and we question it because we know it might leave certain people in the dust. It might lead to us dropping off certain groups or certain friendships or certain, and bringing you into a different direction. But if you trust it and you just follow it, it will lead you in the right place every time. Every time.
That is right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just have to learn to develop it, to use it even more, and not to talking out ourselves of it.
Yes.
Because, as you mentioned, it's always right. The intuition is always right. But now what came to mind is the question about, so you as a mom, and going through all of that, have you ever said to your children that you have this disease and that mom will be fine, will be all right, or you were hiding it from them all the time?
I was open about it from the day I was diagnosed. Even there were certain things that I kind of didn't like. If I was upset about something, like when I lost my hair, I didn't want them to physically see that happening. But I did explain to them that I'm losing my hair. I have to go get my hair cut, and this is how it's going to look when I come home. And they were.
You tell them what is the reason?
Yes,
About
because so they knew when I went in they knew when I was diagnosed. I think they were like my two older kind of probably understood it. The baby didn't. She was too little, but my two older, I think they kind of understood what I was telling them. They knew I had to go in for surgery, and I was in the hospital for a little over a week, week and a half, almost 2 weeks. So the only thing I did do when I was in the hospital, because I was on the neurosurgery floor where they do all the brain surgeries, I didn't let them come visit because it's very scary. It's a little scary for a child to kind of walk around there and see everything and see everyone. It's a difficult thing for an adult. You have people who are really, who have brain cancers and things like that. And I didn't have that, but I was on that floor, and I just thought and I was in a room, I was in the ICU, so I was with other people who were in intensive care. And I just didn't think it was a place for children because you kind of needed to be quiet. It was, and people were really healing. And, but they knew why I was there. They knew what was happening. They knew I was having surgery. I was very open with them. Through my entire process, I've always been very open with them. And I think in turn now, they're very open with me about their health and things that go on. And, we have a very open dialogue about things. And I think that's because I've always been very open with them and open with people. And if anyone asks me, I love to talk about it. I love to tell people, I love talking about the hospitals that I've been to. I like talking about the surgeries. I've been very open with it. And maybe that's part of my way of dealing with it, because I don't feel alone. And I think it's kind of, it's kind of cool. You kind of overcome something that's really, maybe it will help other people to feel stronger about things. So I've always been very, very open with my kids. I never, hid anything from them.
That's really good. I think this will help lots of people who are in similar situations. Yeah. Kelly, I want to touch on a little bit, and I'm bringing you back again to that scene and that pain. And just because of one reason, to explain to people how mind is so powerful and how you really, really can cure yourself if you want it, right?
Yes.
If you know how to use that software of yours.
Yes.
So when you were at that table on the surgery, and you know what, like now if somebody tells me I need to go to the surgery and they will do my head surgery, brain surgery, I would be like, oh my God, they're gonna open, my like, well, that will, right, that goes through your mind, for a second, and then but when you know yourself, when you're working on yourself, and then you go through all this coaching and all that, but you were there at the table, you did not know about anything about your mind and how that works, but what were going through your mind when you were laying on that table prior they gave you opium to fall asleep or
So I remember, I can tell you, so the surgery that I have, because of where the tumor is, it's in the center, it's like right through here. So they go up through your nose and they bore into the head. They go this way and then in. So it's kind of gross, but it's the way that they do it. So they don't really cut skull wise. They go in through your nose and they bore through on this way. So I remember, I did watch videos prior because I'm one of those people. I want to know what they're going to do. I want to know I want to know what is going to happen. And I was laying on the table. And I had kind of, I knew my surgeon. I did a lot of research on her. She was an unbelievable surgeon. I knew I was in an excellent hospital. And from the diagnosis to then, I was never thinking about my own mortality. I wasn't thinking about death. Like it was not like, okay, they could slip and you're going to die, or this potentially could go wrong and something. I just never thought that way. It was more like I was laying there and I was like, all right, let's do this. Let's get it done.
You were kind of like excited to get it done.
Yes. I was like, I want to get back to my normal. I want to get back to, I want to get it over with. I want to heal. And then I want to start my next passage, my next journey. Yeah, my next chapter. Because I think I always knew that there was more. There was more to come. There was more for me to do. There was more out there. And I remember being in the hospital room prior to the surgery, because you're kind of sitting there waiting, and they have to put these things on your head to mark where they're going to go in, and all of that. And it's kind of weird because they draw on your face. So you're sitting there in this, and it's so bizarre because you're sitting there that way. And I remember it was just my husband and I was just very calm. I was very calm. I was more anxious about getting it over and done with.
Because your mindset was already the outcome, right? The positive outcome. And what you're gonna do?
Totally.
What you're gonna do when you get out?
How long? I remember thinking, how long am I going to be laid up? How long do you think it will take? I can remember like being waiting, and I would the whole time, even for the 2 weeks before, like when I had to go meet with the surgeon and they were trying to schedule the surgery and all of that, I was like, all right, guys, let's go, because I've got things to do. I have to go on. I have a life to live, So I was always in the mindset of a positive outcome. I never had that, like, what if, or, oh my God, this could happen. It was not even an option. It was not an option. And I remember someone asking me, they're like, well, do you know what's the success rate of the surgery? I was like, why would I look that up? I was like, I know, I trust my doctor. I know she's an incredible surgeon. And it was a woman too, which was fantastic. She was this unbelievable female brain surgeon that was incredible. And just, she was very comforting, and she made me feel reassured. Like, I never felt concerned at all. It was more always looking, I wasn't even thinking about like the surgery itself. I was always thinking about the end of the surgery and the healing and what I'm going to do when I'm all better. So
Kelly, you had these visualization moments and affirming yourself that you're going to be fine. Do you mind to touch a little bit based on that? How did you?
So I don't think I realized that I was visualizing prior to the surgery. I think now, understanding what I was doing, and I realized that I've really done it forever. Like I've done it. I did it when I was a little kid. I did it, in high school. I did it in college. I did, I've always visualized an outcome. And now I'm like, wow, I've been manifesting stuff my whole life. This is great. This is incredible. So like, I think the power of that is really when you realize it. Unfortunately, it took me till I'm 50 to realize what I was doing, but when you realize this sort of mind over matter, where you can predict the outcome of something prior to it happening, just by the power of mind and visualization. So when I was diagnosed and post-diagnosis, I remember laying there thinking, oh, I can't wait for my body to go back to normal. I can't wait to not feel pain in my joints. I can't wait for my face to just look like it used to look. And I was thinking, what am I going to do after I'm done with this surgery? What do I want to do? And I remember saying, oh, I want to keep running. I want to become so physically fit. And I want to just be active. I want to take care of my body. I want to, put good things in and I was always just visualizing the next thing. And I remember after the surgery, I was very, you're in the hospital, you're very incapacitated and you're all drugged up and everything. And I remember it was probably like the third day, I was leaking spinal fluid was part of the side effects, which is very, very painful. So the nurse would drain, I would lay down and they drain your spinal fluid every day, every hour, 24 hours a day for like a week.
Wow.
So that it can heal, the incision can heal because your brain is sitting in this fluid. And in order for the incision to heal, they have to keep it dry. So they drain your spinal fluid so that it can heal. And it was super painful because you would get these horrible migraine headaches from it. So they would do this every hour. So I would have like a half hour where I knew I was going to feel good. So in that 30 minutes, I would make the nurse help me get up. I would shower, brush my hair, brush my teeth. And I knew I would have these 30-minute windows. And I would say, okay, get me up. I want to walk the floor. So I would take my pole with all my IV, with all this stuff, and I would have 30 minutes and I would walk the floors. And then I knew I'd have to go back. You know what I mean? So I was always in the hospital. I knew I had these intervals, and those intervals had to have some kind of meaning. Like, so, okay, this interval, I'm going to do this. And this interval, I'm going to do this. And so it was always the next, I was always looking to the next thing. Okay, how long before I can get out of here? And I would always ask, all right, what do we need to do? What's the next thing that I need to be able to do for you to let me get out of this hospital? So I was like, I just wanted to always be on the next thing. What's the next thing to help me move forward? And I was constantly picturing what it was that I needed to do to get home and to move on or to do the next thing. That was it.
Kelly, this is so empowering. This is so empowering for everyone who is watching this video. And I hope that whatever situation you are now on, that doesn't matter how challenging it is, that Kelly's story really, really helped you to see there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is always a light.
Always. Never, there's never not a light at the end of the tunnel. You know, listen, there are people who have struggles and deal with things that are, you know, far worse than what I've dealt with. But I think if you sit and you can really try to focus your mind on the positive, even if it's for 5 minutes a day, if you can for 5 minutes a day, focus on the positive, you would be amazed at what you can do, how it will change your whole day moving forward. If you can just take that 5 minutes and then you increase it little by little, 10 minutes. I think it's the same process that people use all the time to get themselves out of situations and move forward in their lives from, you know, really difficult things. They just don't realize it. Like I didn't realize it. I never realized what I was doing, but the power of the mind is incredible.
Yeah, I remember when my father was diagnosed with cancer, lung cancer, and then the cancer went into his brain. And when he died, I cried out for 3 days and maybe a little bit more than that. And then clicked in my mind, I was also unconscious competent, Kelly, like you.
Yes.
And I was thinking, wait, why I would cry? My father would not love to see me crying. And why will one celebrate his life? I will go and play his songs and do things that he loved to do. And I was so grateful that I had him in my life. That really helped me to come out of that I would say dark space, right? When you, as you said, when you find yourself in this space, it's very easy to go deeper and deeper. But when you talk to yourself and when you realize how grateful you are that you already had some person in your life like that, and for everything where you're at right now, you're gonna go to the other side like this. And I totally Mhm.
Yeah, it's like you said, you go into that dark space, and that's normal. I think we all kind of go there sometimes, but I think you just can't stay there. Like you said, you can't stay there.
No.
You have to find those little things that are going to pull you out. And, maybe for me, it was my children. Maybe, it's a trip you want to take, or, it may sound mundane to somebody else, but if it's what's going to pull you out, then use it. Use whatever it takes to sort of push through that terror barrier, to break through to the other side, and to pull you out. I don't think, and I know you said this and I've said it, I don't think we're here to tell people that there's no dark space, or there's no sad time. No, that's part of life. It's how do you react to it? What are you going to do with that? Are you going to stay in it forever? Or are you going to work to pull yourself out of it? And maybe that means going to therapy. Maybe that means a life coach. Maybe that means a new physical activity. I think it's different for everyone. I think it's just taking the steps that's what you need to do. Take the steps.
Yeah.
To just take the steps.
One step at a time. It's
one step at a time. Yeah.
And Kelly, now, like, what would be your message to all people that they're going through tough times in their lives and they don't see the hope? And then, like, what would be your advice to all of them, or message, let's say?
You don't have to do it alone, I think is one thing. Reach out to people. I think you really should. I think it's very helpful to have a support system. Sometimes you are by yourself, but if that means, reaching out to an old friend, or just somebody who's gonna, talk you off the ledge, sometimes you just need someone to talk you off the ledge. And I think find joy in the simple things, the simplest things. I always say to people, you can't walk into a playground and see a bunch of kids laughing and not laugh. If it's as simple as being around kids and hearing their laughter and being silly and playful, then go do it. Just, go sit in a park and just watch their joy, because it's contagious. I think support system is very important. You don't have to go it alone. You don't have to go it alone. There are support systems for all different things and for all different situations. And, yes, there are times you need to be introspective and you need to be by yourself and have those talks with yourself. But there are also times when you need to reach out and say, you know what, I need help with this. I need to talk through this, and I need someone to listen to me and just, make me feel better about that situation. So I think reaching out is really important. Find a network, a group of friends, a group, period. That's why so many people go to different groups, to connect with people who are in the same thing or feeling the same thing, because those people understand, they understand you. So
finding the like-minded people and
like-minded, yes. Connecting, yeah, it builds you up. I think it raises you up, like-mindedness is huge. And I know we always have that discussion, attracting like-minded people. The more you grow, you're going to see the more your network changes, because you're going to attract those people that are more like you. So I think that's huge, is always staying connected. Always stay connected. Yeah.
That is so right. Kelly, I loved having you today.
I loved being here. It was great.
Yeah, and sharing your story with the millions of people out there. I know that you helped really lots of people today. And thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. It was great to be here.
Thanks. And also for all of you who are watching this video, thank you for being here. And remember, doesn't matter in which challenge you are in your life, doesn't matter how dark your space is right now, you can always find the light in the tunnel. You are ordinary, but you're also extraordinary. And if you use your mind the right way, you will get out of that situation in much sooner than you thought. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So see you next time. This is channel that it's called Ordinary People Are Doing Extraordinary Things, just like Kelly, just like you, just like me and everyone else on this planet. I'm Millie with Miller Coaching, and see you soon.
Bye.